I want to talk a little bit about why angles and trines and these Raja Yogas work the way they do. And then show some charts. So, the reason it works like this is because well, does anybody have any ideas? What do you think? Why angles and trines? Why is that so important?
Action, the angles are houses of action, and the trines are houses of blessing and auspiciousness. So you combine and you get good.
Well, they're all houses of action. All the houses have action. So you want to be more specific than that.
The angles are foundational. They create a good
Structure. They're actually structure. Like, you look at the chart, the angles are equidistant from the ascendant. The first house is an angle. It's also a trine. I'll explain why. Fourth house is equidistant from that. Seventh house. Look in this room. Is this room built on 3 pillars? 2 pillars? 4 pillars, right? 4 directions. 4 directions in the chart. 4 directions from the ascendant. Every 4 houses, there's an angle. Boom, boom, boom. They give structure. What's the structure of the first house? Why is the first house an angle? You might want to write this down.
The self or the moment?
It's your actual presence. It's your body. The structure of your body. Like, first of all, the reason the first house is an angle, I'm going to say why it's a trine in a minute, but the angular quality of the first house is that it's your physical power. When the first house angle fails is when you don't have good health. What if you plan to do something but you're sick? You going to do it still? Can't get out of bed. That's why the first house is an angle. That's the angular quality of the first house. Because people say, oh, it's an angle and a trine, like it's both, or like they're the same thing. They're not. They're different reasons why. First house as an angle is your physical health and power to actually take action. Right? It's your localized presence to actually do the thing. Okay? Why is the fourth house an angle?
It's the home. It's where we get our foundation from our upbringing.
Okay, the home is a manifestation of the fourth house.
It's the root, earth.
It's your heart, it's your mind, the home is like an outer expression of it, but it's actually your mind, it's your heart. When someone has a powerful fourth house, their heart is fortified, it's anchored, they're anchored in the heart. It's a solid emotional state. It's really our mental emotional state. So when the fourth house is fortified, is a strong angle, the person's heart and mind is deep and solid. Does that make sense? Let's say you plan to do something, but then, I don't feel like it now because something happened and I'm just, how much are you going to get done in your life? Not much. This is why when the fourth house is messed up, it's actually one of the worst houses to have afflicted. Malefics in the fourth and problems with planets in the fourth house are some of the deepest, most destabilizing in all of astrology. Malefics in the fourth, especially Saturn, Rahu in the fourth, are really hard because the person's heart is just a mess. They're just unsettled all the time. You can plan to do stuff, but if you don't feel like, or you show up and you do it and your heart is just in chaos. So when the fourth house is powerful, this is why it's an angle. Again, remember, this is support for your life. We're not talking about how it feels in the metaphysics, literally the supports. It supports your life because when you have a consistent mind and heart anchored in solid consistency, you follow through with things, you're solid to the core, right? You see how that's an angle, how that's a support, right? What about the seventh house? How's that an angle? How's that supporting your life?
It's your relationships.
Yeah, you have good relations. What?
Your relationships, your connections.
Right. People like you, you like them, you have a solid, established foundation with others. And your relationship with others are support in your life. You get support literally from others. You'll find where others are actually there to support you. Also because you offer support as well. It just shows this kind of
reflection.
Yeah, this anchor in your life. Again, realize the angles are like anchors, supports in your life, like the angles of like the beams of a room supporting it. Fourth house supports through this solid, consistent support through the heart. Seventh house through other people. What about 10th house? Why is that an angle? Why is that a support? What's the 10th house?
Work, action, stability.
Career is an expression, just like the house is just like the home is the expression of the 4th house. Career is the expression of our 10th house. But what is the real...
Responsibilities.
Exactly, duties. Taking our duties and handling responsibility, handling pressure. Here's the thing. These houses work, if you haven't noticed, in opposites. 4th and 10th house is an axis, like when you get the nodes there. 1st and 7th house is an axis. How much does your relationships with others have to do with your own self-awareness? How much does your capacity to handle pressure have to do with your own emotional state? You have no emotional stability if you can't handle external pressure. Pressure comes from the 10th house, handling it comes from the 4th house. So they're mirror opposites. Everything has its reflective opposite, as sort of like the higher vibration, like the unintegrated part of anything is its opposite. So the same is true. If we're just if we're just performing actions and duties with no connection to the heart, it's also not going to be harmonious. We're going to get sick of it, we're going to burn ourselves out, and we're going to collapse and just be buried beneath the mountain of responsibility that we have no feeling for. So they all work in conjunction. And again, these are not just principles that I'm talking now, they're principles you can look at. When you see a person who has a bunch of planets in the 10th house, look and see where that 4th lord is, and see, hopefully they have some kind of connection to the heart as well. They got a bunch of planets in the 4th house, they might just be all about how I feel. Everything's about how I feel. And they have a hard time handling responsibility, perhaps. But you just want to understand why the angles are so important, and why, like, when you look at these charts, what you can expect, rather than just even beyond the rules of Raja Yoga, what the specifics are. Okay? Do you understand? So the 1st house is a support for our life. Why? We need to have a strong physical presence, right? Our physical body needs to be healthy, and we need to be able to actually perform the action. 4th house is a support. Why?
Strong emotions, stable emotions.
A strong, stable heart to endure, so that we don't run and we don't have all these aversions to things, always only doing what feels good to us. This is the problem of the 4th house. Only doing what feels good. And again, like, we could look at something like this. We just looked at this chart that had all this potential. But this also a lot of, this kind of potential takes a lot of courage. Because if you're going to really show up and live full on, like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, some kind of 10th house thing with all this powerful Mars, Saturn in the 10th, that's a big challenge. If you ain't got the heart for it, you'll be like, oh, maybe I'll just stay. And this is where we fail ourselves. So 4th house has a lot of those attractions and aversions based on what feels good. So the capacity to push beyond what feels good into what our duties are, again, this is the 4th house. The fortitude to not just collapse into wanting to feel good all the time. 7th house is other people, right? Opposite us. My presence is 1st house. 7th house is the support I get from others. And then 10th house is our duties, handling pressure, right? Many people, this is where they fail. They fail in these kinds of things because we have ideas that we want to do something. We have ideas that we want to be this, astrologer or this thing, but then it's like, okay, now put it out there and know that you're now standing behind it. Now it's out there. You're now adding your voice to the thing. This is where most people get a little skittish, because then it's not just an abstraction. Now it's up there and you have to be responsible for it. And it's half the people aren't going. You're going to evoke jealousies and arguments, and you have to defend it, and you have to be ready. And stepping up with all that duty and all that power and all that responsibility is a challenge to us, and it challenges us in the 4th house and the integrity in the heart as well. So start seeing that as a whole, how these 4 angles work on each other, and sort of reflect the opposite. So now the trinal houses. The trinal